someone asked me, they called it the 180-year test. They said, Ryan, can you name me all of your great-grandparents' names? Those people they're not remembered, or they don't have a legacy beyond even the generation before that, but beyond 180 years.
But what's going to be said at my funeral? Like, how is my life going to be celebrated? How are people going to remember me? Who's going to show up? Why are they showing up? Are they showing up because they knew me through someone else, or because I had direct contact and direct impact on their life?
Welcome back, folks. Thanks for being here. On Modern Business, we're building a great community of growth-minded entrepreneurs. We are forward-thinking leaders and business owners who use technology and ideas to improve. But beyond that, we all share a mission to give back and contribute to the world. And today's guest embodies that spirit. This episode is with Nick Marino of TangoTab, which is a company that is working to end hunger in America. It's a very bold mission, but let me share a little bit about how they're doing it. The app has over 90,000 restaurants on the platform, and every time users check in, TangoTab donates a meal to people in need. Nick is the Chief Visionary Officer as well, and the founder for a company called Mission D, which highlights individuals making a difference. He's also the co-founder of Revolving Media, which is a marketing powerhouse that works with professional athletes, local startups, and national accounts, to expand their brand through advertising and marketing. A couple of fun facts on Nick. He's a Guinness World Record holder for hosting the event for most people making sandwiches simultaneously. I find that very fascinating and interesting. Also, in 2016, Nick was named the top Texans under 30. Welcome, I'm Ryan Hicks, and this is Modern Business, the podcast to learn from franchise business leaders and explore new business technology. Our community is about sharing knowledge and tools that help us achieve our goals in business and beyond. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Modern Business. And we're about to cut to the interview with Nick Marino, but before we do, it would mean a lot to me if you were to share this with someone at a restaurant that you think would be a very good fit for the TangoTab platform, because the mission is phenomenal. It's feeding kids in America and feeding hungry families in America. There's a lot of folks, maybe even in neighborhoods next to you, that go hungry. So it'd mean a lot if you were to share this to a restaurant or a restaurant chain that could benefit from more folks in the door and let Nick's group donate food to people in need. Thank you very much, and enjoy this interview.
Nick, thanks so much for joining today. Welcome to Modern Business.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, sir. So you guys have an incredible team, an incredible mission over at TangoTab, and I want to start off chatting about that. Tell me how it all started.
Yeah, TangoTab started, the idea came from our CEO, Andre Angel, who had kind of an idea of driving traffic to restaurants back when he was in college, and this is way before mobile apps, and if he hears this, he'll kill me, but that's when the dinosaurs roamed. No, I'm kidding. So when he was back in college, and they would set up different events with musicians, even himself being a classical pianist, would go out and play at bars to help fill empty seats. So he knew there was a problem with restaurants, and that's been a problem with restaurants for so many years, for decades, is that the biggest problem is filling empty seats when they have them, because that's the biggest cost to them as a whole. They're still paying for the lights and cooks and all their other bills, etc., but no revenues coming in. So throughout the years, Andre became a tech mogul. I call him an undercover tech mogul, because the things that he created are things that we use every day, but a lot of people don't really know like who the person is that created them. One of the most consumer-facing things that he started was GoToMeeting, which was called Expert City back in the day, and he sold that off to Citrix back in 2003, and started his entrepreneur journey after he was the CIO of Nortel Network. So he's always had a technology background, And through the years, after building and selling businesses, he took a step back and was like, you know what? I keep building businesses and pretty much they're for myself and for shareholders and things of that nature. What if I put my business acumen to work and help solve a social solution or a social problem? And so through his business acumen, he said we need to figure out a business problem. And he remembered that of the restaurants that he saw years prior. And then he saw the social problem, which immediately he had thought world hunger, because through his companies he had traveled all around the world and saw world hunger firsthand and world poverty and knew that was a big problem. And then he was introduced to an individual in the North Texas area that runs a local food pantry. And she invited him to come out on a Saturday morning and bring his kids. So they went out there and volunteered, and he saw that hunger existed 1.5 miles away from his front door. And when he saw that, he said, wow, he said, I know world hunger is a problem, but so is hunger right here in the U.S. And if it's happening 1.5 miles away from my front door, it's happening everywhere in the entire country. So he said, what if we started building this app that helped restaurants fill their empty seats, but simultaneously solving the social problem and providing a meal locally in those communities every time somebody used the app at one of these restaurants. And that's kind of how TangoTab was birthed.
That is very powerful. So you're not just aggregating meals to a national organization, but you're actually funneling them down to the local markets that you're in?
Absolutely. So if you're out using TangoTab in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we're going to feed people in Tulsa, Oklahoma through partners like Iron Gate or the Northeast Oklahoma Food Bank and partner organizations like that. Or if you're down in Austin, we're going to feed through organizations in Austin, San Diego, Dallas, and so on.
What a great thing. I was involved in a charity event back in my fraternity days, and we would raise a lot of money, and a lot of times organizations would donate it to the national causes, which are great causes, but it's really neat to see organizations that send it down to the local level. So that's excellent. I really commend that.
And if you think about the model of how it's built, that local touch actually does end up touching world hunger once we start expanding internationally. So it's an interesting play on the route that we're taking to it.
Yeah, and even in doing some research, I know about you guys, but in just looking through before we did this little call, I didn't even realize. You look at world hunger, people talk about world hunger, it's so far away from home you don't even think about it, but the thing that you just mentioned, it's actually right here in your backyard, and that's really neat. I love the cause and what you guys are up to.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
How many restaurants are on the platform today? And I've seen some numbers, but how many meals have you given out?
Yeah, so throughout the years we've grown. I mean, we started back in 2012 and did a lot of testing. We started out as just a website, really before our app was even released. And throughout the years, we started expanding markets. Back in 2014, we expanded to about 3 more markets, and then 2015, a few more, and 2016, more than that, and then in 2017, really started pushing from a national side and launched in over 100,000 restaurants that are now able to be checked in on the app. So no matter if you're in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, or if you're in Boston, Massachusetts, there's restaurants in your area that you'll be able to use. Could be our national partners, could be local partners. And to date, we've been able to feed over north of 2.4 million people in need.
That's amazing. I want to see. We got to get this up to 10 million and beyond. Tell me a couple of challenges that you guys that you came across while building this, and talk about what one of your biggest challenges that you've come across and how you pushed through and solved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a new analogy that I've started using when being asked a question of this format, that it sounds like a fairy tale, and usually when we hear the word fairy tale, we think of the happily ever after the end, but through every fairy tale, there are obstacles. You look at Snow White, you look at Cinderella, they all had obstacles before they had their happily ever after. And it might sound super easy, like, hey, you know what? We're going to just do this, and every time somebody checks in, we're going to feed a person in need, and that it makes it simple from a marketing standpoint or from a sales pitch standpoint or from just building a business as a whole. And we still face a lot of the same obstacles and struggles that any business would face. I mean, we're still building a company here. So, I mean, it's the consumer acquisition. It's some of the things challenges that we face. You look at how people give today. And when someone says, oh, give to an organization, most likely the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I'm going to write a check and donate, or I might volunteer my time. And that's what our society is susceptible to. That's the quick thing that they think of. Or, hey, I'm going to go check in. Well, I'm going to do that on Facebook, or I'm going to do that on Instagram and post a picture with it, right? So it's changing consumer behavior, even though it's such a simple step that literally takes you no more than 15 seconds to do when you're in a restaurant. We still have to have you remember it, right, when you go to a restaurant. When I'm going out to eat, I'm going to TangoTab it. That's why over the last year we've changed messaging inside of our app to change the word TangoTab more into a verb rather than just the name of the company. So you look at things like Google. Now when you say, oh, you just Google it, people know that means search. But when Google started, that's not what it meant. People called it Google the search engine, right? Or, hey, I'm going to request an Uber. Even if you're using a Lyft, most people will say, oh, I'm going to get an Uber, right?
I literally, yesterday, a friend was calling an Uber. It's like he said, I will call the Uber, and he pulled out Lyft.
Right. Absolutely. So it's just training people on that. You see us at our events. I'll be up front and just say every time you go out to eat, and have them finish the sentence of saying TangoTab It. So to making it more of a verb, and we're continuing to work on that messaging and make sure that our messaging is so on point, which is such an important aspect from any business.
Love it. Love it. Shifting gears a bit, I see you were named top Texan under 30 in 2016. That's pretty neat. How did that come about?
Someone nominated me. I was sent an email, and that came up. I was invited to an event, and don't get me wrong, it's cool to get that type of recognition, and I mean, at the end of the day, that recognition helps our mission. So that's how I view that type of recognition, right? So it's important from being able to get in front of individuals. It's important to being able to be seen by media and press. And they say all news is all press is good press. That's in the eye of the beholder. But if we're getting nominated for things like that, or our app is winning one of the top rising startups in the country by Tech Week and things of that nature, it shows that we're doing a lot of good things. From building a business, but most of all actually making a difference in our communities, and that's where it all lies at the end of the day. It's not an individual thing of Nick Marino or Andre Angel. It's about, hey, we're on in person or digitally, and we're going to make a change in their communities.
Love it. And by the way, can you tell our folks in our listening audience, we have a lot of people in the restaurant world and on the national side. So if for the folks listening, how do they sign up? How do they learn more? Just go to the website?
Yeah, you can go to TangoTab.com, and our new website's about to be launching, and it's going to have, I have to say, our messaging is pretty awesome, and it's going to be continuing to get updated on it more frequently. And from app side, I mean, we're available on iTunes and Android, so feel free to download it. We'd love for you to check it out. There's a contact us page in there. We always love feedback. I think that's one of the biggest things that we do as a company, is that we bleed into all of our product team and to any employee is saying, hey, accept feedback, accept constructive criticism that we can continue to build on and make this one of the best apps out there that people can use. From a restaurant standpoint, we have the entire restaurant page on our site. And that's going to be built out more in the new site that you can actually go and sign up. It's a great way to not only get your name out there from a restaurant standpoint, but really to say, hey, to your consumers, every time you come to our restaurant, you're going to be able to feed a person in need. And there's some great data that we're able to provide to restaurant owners, general managers, franchise owners. So it's really any restaurant, coffee bar itself, even your local like pastry shop. You think of like a Tiff's Treats and things like that. I mean, it's definitely good for any of these locations that have food, that serve food.
Love it. I've got like 10 introductions for you. Tell me, as I'll be respectful of our time here, but tell me a little bit about the work that you do with Revolving Mind Media.
Yeah, so Revolving Mind Media, met my business partner in that, Aaron Zach, a few years ago, and we became best friends. And he was the youngest NFL agent. He's gotten older since then, so I don't know if I can really use that line anymore. But he has been working with athletes for the last 7 years, and we just put together Revolving Mind Media to help them from their charity side, to help them from their own brands, building out their websites, working with them for endorsement deals, getting them good press, and just having them work with positive companies that help them, of course, with the checkbook, but brands that they believe in, that they use. And we have performance brands that they work with that are making them better as athletes as a whole. And one of our biggest focuses right now is setting up an annual event that we're going to be taking these athletes to, and making sure that they are well set beyond the sport that they play. Your average football player plays about 3 years, if that, and we want to make sure that they are set once they are out of the game. Because if you think about it, 3 years and you're getting drafted when you're 22, you're 25 years old, you have a lot of life left. What are you going to do with those next 60, 70, 80 years that you have on this earth? Making sure that they're ready for that.
Where do you think you get your drive? I mean, you've and the focus on the social entrepreneurship side, because I'm seeing that as the common thread. Everything that you do is you're focused on a purpose kind of beyond just commerce in general. Where do you think you get that drive from?
I have to say, I have to give that up to the good genes that the good Lord blessed me with through my parents. So, I mean, I always say that I wasn't raised with a silver spoon. I was raised with a wooden spoon, but I was fed very well. My parents come from a blue-collar family, I should say, and they've been working their whole lives. And I've started working at a young age, and I've always paid for my own things for the most part since I was 15 years old. Never really asked my parents for anything except for their love, support, and any decision that I make in my lifetime, and just being able to do that. And I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but to say to make the world a better place than when I came into it. And throughout time, I've been able to learn really well that I can have cars and houses or whatever all over this world. At the end of the day, I'm going to be buried 6 feet under or cremated or however I decide later on in life. But I'm going to leave all those behind, and those will be forgotten or given away or sold. The only thing that I can truly leave behind is a legacy of something that I've changed, and what story do I want to be told about me when I am gone from here.
It's very powerful. Someone asked me, I think they called it the 180-year test. And they said, Ryan, can you name me all of your great-grandparents' names?
Yep, I say that all the time.
If you ask that with anybody, think about that. That's your direct. Mm-hmm. Those are people that are very important to your existence. And most people they're not remembered, or they don't have a legacy beyond even the generation before that, but beyond 180 years. It's really powerful to think about.
Absolutely. I think about that. I do think about that actually all the time. I always think about, I'm like, it's weird. I don't know if this is a weird thing to think about. It's like, but what's going to be said at my funeral? Like, how is my life going to be celebrated? How are people going to remember me? Who's going to show up? Why are they showing up? Are they showing up because they knew me through someone else, or because I had direct contact and direct impact on their life? So that's something that definitely does go through my head a lot. And like you said, name your great grandparents, and if you can name them, congratulations. Now name your great grandparents, and most likely no one's going to be able to name those individuals.
Truth, man. True words. True words. Couple of last quick questions as we go. Do you have a favorite book?
Man, do I have?
Or do you not find time to read because you're out changing the world?
Actually, I love reading. I love reading. As I try to read as much as I can in my downtime. At the end of the day, that's how I grow. Yes, I learn from actions and everything, but reading from other experiences as well. Read my favorite book. Man, that's a tough one to just pinpoint one. Start With Why or anything pretty much by Simon Sinek.
Yep.
Are a few of my favorites. Start Something That Matters by Blake McCoskey. I'm reading a book right now called Contagious. The author is
How
slipping my
Ideas
mind
Spread?
right now.
Is it that one?
Yep, absolutely.
It's a very good one. Have you ever read Keith Ferrazzi, Never Eat Alone?
I have not, but then also things like permission marketing, so the Purple Cow Effect, the Tipping Point, and things of that nature. So a lot of business books is from a reading standpoint. I focus a lot on business, on marketing, and on social good. Promise of a Pencil by Adam Braun is another great one. I mean, I could just keep listing books all day long, and it's a good thing to be able to sit down and to read. It's part of my self-care time. So as much as I'm go and starting new businesses and new ventures and running events and speaking around the country, I'm like, hey, you know what? You need to focus on yourself as well and make sure you're healthy mentally, financially, physically. And so that's been a goal of mine over the last year or so, is that self-care time.
It's very important. Cheers, Nick. Thank you so much for the time, and we're behind you and your mission over at TangoTab and beyond. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much, Ryan.
As always, thanks for listening. I want to wrap up with 3 of Nick's favorite quotes. In business life, he says, don't just think outside of the box, think as if there's no box at all. In personal life, he says, be better than yesterday, and in general, live with purpose.